with that real raw emotion.
Sure.
And one argument they say is you, Douglas Murray, and you, Lex Fridman, don't have the right to talk about race and racism in America. It is our struggle. You are from a privileged class of people that don't know what it's like to be a black man or woman in America walking down the street. Can you steel man that case?
First of all, fuck that.
Okay. I think we need to define steel manning.
Okay.
Can you
I know
at
what
least
steel
try
manning
it?
is. I really resent that form of argumentation.
Sure.
I really resent it. I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want.
All right, here we are today on the Lex Fridman podcast, and his guest is none other than Douglas Murray, the English author who has written a number of books, specifically quite a few on the negative effects of mass migration in the West, especially in Europe, and the destruction of the West. Yeah, the war on the West, as he calls it. So here they're talking about in this podcast, as you heard, Lex Fridman asked him about, bringing up people who say, well, you can't talk about certain issues because you don't understand them. Well, anybody can talk about anything. It's nonsensical, as Douglas Murray properly pointed out.
And no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me.
Yeah.
Or tell me that I can't simply because of my skin color. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible. If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because you've not got my skin color. Okay, it's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? You haven't been through everything I've been through in my life, therefore you can't comment. No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
Strong words, but can you try to steel man the case? Not in this particular situation, but there's people that have lived through something that can comment in a very specific way. Like, for example, Holocaust survivors.
Yes.
There is a sense in which maybe a basic sense of civility when a Holocaust survivor is speaking about their experience of the Holocaust than an intellectual from a very different part of the world that's simply writing about nuanced geopolitics of World War II just should not interrupt the Holocaust survivor.
We physically interrupt them if they're telling their
with
story.
words, with logic and reason, that the experience of the Holocaust survivor somehow fundamentally has a deeper understanding of the humanity and the injustice of.
I don't know about you, but I've seen. I don't follow Lex Fridman. He sort of came into my awareness 2 or 3 years ago or something. I can't remember. And it seemed like he was suddenly everywhere. He suddenly had millions of subscribers to his podcast. I see he's got over 4 million, and I just don't get it. I honestly don't get it. The guy, I mean, I assume he's intelligent, but when I've seen him interviewing people, like he's interviewing Douglas Murray here, to me, he's just not making his point properly. What's this about Holocaust survivors? If you want to learn what it was like to be in the Holocaust, to live, through it, or to be in a camp like a Holocaust survivor, then obviously you ask people who went through that experience. And somebody who's an academic and writing about the Holocaust will know things about it. He'll know things about World War II, the Holocaust, the catastrophe that was World War II. But yes, he won't have lived through that particular experience at that particular time. It's sort of irrelevant. We're talking about two different things. Both people have valid points of view and valid things to say. So I just don't know what's going on here. It's like somebody, I guess his point is that, yeah, unless you're a black person who grew up in the United States and experienced some form of racism personally, yeah, compared to somebody who's not those things and hasn't had that experience, yeah, you'll have different experience, of course. It doesn't mean their points of view about, say, race, are invalid. Yeah, It's one does not negate the other. Both things can be true or false at the same time.
Well, first of all, again, we're in even deeper waters now, but in terms of wanting to listen to another person who has experienced something, yes, but not endlessly. Not endlessly. I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did. It's not this idea that the lived experience, to use this terrible modern jargon, as if there's another type. This
Sorry to interrupt again. Yeah, this lived experience thing. Yeah, there's a place for it, of course. Yeah, there's plenty, and as you just specifically mentioned, yeah, there's plenty of Holocaust books that came out, which, as we now know, contained a lot of nonsense. Check out Elie Wiesel's Night for one of them, the original version.
this idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct. It can be correct in some circumstances. If you are sitting in a room with a Holocaust survivor and somebody who'd never heard about the Holocaust and wanted to kind of, shoot out their views on it, yeah, one of those people should be heard more than the other, obviously. If there's somebody who's experienced racism firsthand and there's somebody else who has never experienced it, then obviously you'd want to hear from the person who has experienced it firsthand, if that is the discussion underway.
Exactly.
I don't think that it's the case that is endlessly the case. I'm also highly reluctant to concede that there are groups of people who, by dint of their skin color or anything else, get to dominate the microphone. Now, of course, we're literally both speaking into microphones at the moment, so there's an irony to this, but let's skate over the irony. What I mean is people saying, you don't have the right to speak. I have the right to take the microphone from you and speak because I know best. Fine. If you know best, we'll argue it out and someone will win, long or short term. But the almost aggressive tone in which this is now leveled, I don't like the sound of. Nobody's experience is completely understandable by another human being. Nobody's.
Exactly.
And what many people are asking us to do at the moment, us collectively, is to fall for that thing. I think it was Camille Faster who said it first, but I've adopted it in recent years, is to say you must spend an inordinate amount of your life trying to understand me personally, my lived experience, everything about me. You should dedicate your life to trying to do that. Simultaneously, you'll never understand me. This is not an attractive invitation. This is an unwinnable game. So if somebody has a legitimate and an important point to make, they should make it, and they will win through whatever their characteristics, whatever their race. And by the way, there are plenty of white people who experience racism as well. There are plenty of white people who do and have done, and increasingly so, which is one of the things I write about in the War on the West. I mean, I would argue that today in America, the only group who are actually allowed to be consistently, vilely racist against are white people.
Well, very good point. What is affirmative action and DEI and all that other stuff, but racism against white people? That's exactly what it is. It's what did we also used to call it when I was young? I'm thinking back a long time now. Affirmative action, positive discrimination. There we go. And, basically, it's just another form of racism. And of course, because it is another form of racism, all the leftists had to give a new definition and to redefine what racism meant. And now I hear so-called ordinary people saying, the original, they say racism is, bigotry plus power or something like that. So it's not just being bigoted against some other group on the basis of their racial or ethnic background. It is being bigoted against them on the basis of their racial or ethnic background, plus being in a powerful position in your society by dint of your own racial or ethnic background. Now, there we go. See, when you're constantly changing what words mean, then you can never get anywhere. And of course, racism or ethnic bigotry exists everywhere in the world, where in societies where ethnic or that are multi-ethnic, in fact, everywhere. In African countries, Africa has so many ethnicities. African countries, oh my God, any given country has loads of ethnicities, and they have all sorts of problems between those ethnicities. Same in Asia, same in South America, same in India, which has, as we know, has its caste system, and it has all sorts of racial and ethnic bigotries between different ethnic groups, between religious groups, between castes, happens everywhere. And this idea in the West, and especially in the United States, that somehow the bigotry that exists there is somehow worse. It's nonsense. It's like this whole debate about slavery. Slavery has always existed. It's always been part of human societies. A lot of it was, in fact, white people who basically dismantled slavery in the West, especially beginning with the British Empire, and then later in the United States. But of course, slavery still exists. Where does it exist today? In Africa. Yeah. So it's all nonsense. Douglas Murray's obviously fed up with his nonsense, as am I. But I have a feeling it's going to take a while to dismantle it. And hopefully the West won't be dismantled in the meantime. Let me know what you think about all that, about Douglas Murray and Lex Fridman. As I said, Lex Fridman, I'm just not impressed. I don't get it. It's like he's super promoted, but why? Maybe some conspiracy theorists out there can clue me in the comments. Anyway, and while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.